We are always glad to welcome back Ann Coulter, syndicated columnist and best-selling author of In Trump We Trust, E Pluribus Awesome. You know that when you do a Second Amendment column, and, I know that, illegal aliens are a number one issue for both of us, but I think I rank Second
Immigration, not illegal aliens.
Okay. I agree
sorry,
because...
I have to correct you.
I know you do because... my producers would tell you that just last night I was riffing on the fact that, well, you want to have immigration, fine, but what's the level? Reagan at $300,000 a year, Clinton at $600,000 a year, today at $1 million a year legal, and then more illegal on top of it. I'm with you.
I know you're good on the issue. It's just a trope that Republicans have picked up. So I think it's something that needs to be corrected.
Fair enough. But when you do the Second Amendment, I was so impressed because you point out that the New York Times isn't the bitter irony that students at Santa Fe High, one of them walked out a month ago in support of Parkland, Florida, and then now that student, sad to say, is in the hospital recovering from a school shooting. And you said, I love this, I suppose we could revel in the irony, but as a more results-oriented person, what I take from the vignette is that school walkouts are not effective deterrents to school shootings, and I'm not sure the poems did much either. You're right. And then you go on to cite a huge list of successful cases where Americans who carry a concealed weapon, as I do every day, have managed to stop crimes. And that's admirable.
God bless you. You're a good Samaritan. You're out there keeping other people safe.
25 years now. 25 years.
And the stories, I read through a whole slew of them to put the ones I included in the column. One of the things I noticed was, luckily, criminals are really bad shots, whereas the concealed carry permit holders, they get their man.
And you know the dog that doesn't bark, Ann, that I always remind people of, they say, well, it'd be dangerous to arm average teachers. And I say, well, hold on. The DOJ says 1.5 million or so defensive gun uses in America every year, most without firing a shot. But even where shots are fired, when was the last time, and I know you'd get a lot of attention for it, when was the last time you saw a news story about man with concealed carry weapon defends himself but inadvertently shoots a bystander? I look for those, Ann. You can't find them.
Right. Well, the other thing you can't find, you raise an interesting point. You also don't see, it's not national news, the 2 million times per year, as estimated by, I think it's Gary Kleck, the old ACLUer, who is still an honest researcher. 2 million times a year, guns being used defensively to prevent crimes. There's not going to be a story, man brandishes gun, no one hurt.
No.
Man pulls gun, robbers flee. That's it. So the stories I did get and put in, I suppose it's kind of lucky they made news because it was often the beginning of a mass shooting, and either a few people would be wounded, one or two killed. I don't think there was a single story where more than two people were killed, and most of them, at most one, but. There's not much you can do when somebody pulls out a gun and shoots the caseworker in the head. That doctor story, by the way, was so much cooler than I gave the full flowering description to. The psychiatrist and a caseworker, for those of you who haven't read the column, they're meeting with a felon and psychiatric patient. This had been the felon's psychiatrist for 20 years. He was obviously a nut. Anyway, he goes into the meeting on a floor of a hospital, and there were a lot of people on that floor whose lives were saved that day. Even though it was a gun-free zone, the shrink, being in the psych ward, apparently disregarded that gun-free zone rule. And the felon and psych patient, he starts yelling at the two of them, the caseworker and the shrink, shoots the caseworker many times in the head. She's dead, dead, dead. Shoots the shrink in the head. He was hit in the head, reached for his own gun. I mean, obviously not, directly through the brain. It winged him, but he was shot in the head, and he pulled out his own gun, shot the felon and the shrink, psychiatric patient, who lived, but the psychiatric patient had 39 more rounds with him. Everybody on that floor would have been dead if his psychiatrist had not had the foresight to disregard the hospital's no gun rule. And what you were just saying about this idea, we can't give teachers guns. Well, a lot of the cases I cite, and I suspect we don't hear about the shootings that, as I was just saying, the shootings that are stopped don't make news. They think it's a troubled student, send them to the police, send them to a different school or something. If a coach pulls out a gun. But there are a lot of people other than, for one thing, I think kindergarten teachers, if I were a kindergarten teacher, I'd carry a gun because, your image of a kindergarten teacher is a delicate woman. Well, a delicate woman is utterly defenseless without a gun. But I'll leave my girl power point aside for a moment and say there are a lot of people other than the French teacher and the kindergarten teacher. There are the coaches, there are the principals, there are football coaches, there are a lot of men. And the beauty part of concealed carry, unlike having, a single security office at every school, is the psychos don't know who's carrying.
Yep. And by the way,
all you need is the permission to carry. And it could be the kindergarten teacher, it could be the French teacher.
And by the way, Ann, one of my personal favorites that I've talked about a number of times on the show is the one you cite from 21 years ago, Joel Myrick. And here's why. The reason Joel Myrick, you say he had to run to his car and retrieve his gun.
Yep.
Why? Because he was prohibited from carrying it in the school. Now, how crazy is that he managed to save the day, and the details of that one are fascinating about what he did to stop this young man who shot and killed two people. Was
headed to the junior high school.
He was, and but the teacher or the principal sprints to his car, gets the gun that he should have had right on his person, if all things were right, and he goes out and stops the kid successfully without shooting him, and which, I could argue with that result, but whatever. I'm with
you. It's similar to the one at the Appalachian Law School. I didn't include this because
that's a great one.
Law school. The two students stopped the Nigerian immigrant who had flunked out. He was like 45 years old. First, I want to talk to our immigration authorities on that one, but we'll move aside. He starts shooting people, administrator students, because he was flunking out. Two students capture him and point their gun at him. They, too, had to run out to the parking lot first to get their guns.
And how stupid is that? And wouldn't it make sense? I really am so glad that you write these, because I post most of your columns on my Facebook page, because when people read through them, if you then say to them, now tell me why, with all these lives saved, you don't want teachers to be equipped this way, and how much more good would that do is, as you label it appropriately, the mawkish coverage. I get kind of sick because I think it is kind of sick. I used to work in TV news, and they'd say, well, we're going to go out and do a live shot from the memorial, and we'll have all the teddy bears and the flowers and all that. Yeah. And I think, what? What is this about? Oh, we have to show it so we can show people grieving. Really? People grieving want to be shown on TV? Why?
No, it's awful. It's awful.
It's really pretty ugly, but Ann has put together a great list, many of them we've talked about, and you deserve to be congratulated for it. I encourage people to go out and get legally licensed and then carry. The only time I don't, Ann, is when I have to get on an airplane or go to crazy places like Maryland or D.C.
Or a post office.
Or a post office. Well, I stay away from the post office, but no, the rest of the places, it's good. You got to read her column. You'll find it at AnnCoulter.com, and of course, in Trump We Trust. Didn't he show his stripes today very quickly, 10 seconds?
He was great on immigration. He's not going to sign an amnesty bill. He's insisting on a wall first. Now we want the action to follow the words.
Okay, fair enough. Ann Coulter with us. Glad to have you with me.